Hello there! I just rewatched Mandalorian Season 1, so you don't have to. I know, I'm a modern day hero. It was an arduous task, but I managed to do it. So, to show your appreciation, remember to subscribe, like the video, comment down below, all that stuff. But without further ado, let's go! So we start on this snowy planet, which I could give you the name of, but I'm not going to because it's not very important. In fact, it's not very important at all. We start in this cantina, and there's this blue guy who's getting a bit of hassle from a few of the patrons in the cantina. Mando walks in and manages to start a fight with the patrons, despite the fact that he's not actually said anything or done anything to make them angry with him. I think one of them spilled their drink or something, but it wasn't really his fault. Anyway, one of them gets chopped in half, and the blue guy's pretty happy about this because he's no longer getting hassled by them, because Mando's done a pretty good job of beating them all up. As it turns out, Mando is actually looking for the blue guy because the blue guy is Mando's bounty. The blue guy's then not as happy as he thought he was because he's being taken in by a bounty hunter, or he thought he'd just been saved by this guy. So, they travel to the Razor Crest, which is the Mandalorian ship, and they get attacked by a giant sea snake, but that's not particularly important because Mando deals with it very, very quickly. The blue guy tries to escape from the Razor Crest, but Mando puts him in carbon freeze. So Mando lands on Navarro and delivers his bounties to a guy called Greef Karga. Navarro and Greef Karga, two names worth remembering because we're going to visit them quite a lot during this season. Mando, though, just wants another bounty. In fact, he doesn't just want one more bounty, he wants to take all of them. Greef Karga's like, whoa, slow down, dude, sharing is caring. And Mando's like, well, give me the one that's worth the most then. Greef Karga's like, well, that's 5,000 credits, and Mando's having none of that, because that's not even going to cover his fuel costs. Greef Karga's like, well, there's this one other job, and it's based on Navarro, but there's no puck, and it's face to face. Mando's like, I will take it. Now the client is an Imperial and offers the Mandalorian Beskar. He wants the bounty alive, preferably, although it can be delivered dead for a lesser fee. He only gets a tracking fob and an age, the age being 50, and the last known position, which is the planet of Arvala 7. The Mandalorian's like, well, I guess I better go get this bounty then, but then he realises that before he sets off, he should probably visit his friends, the Mandalorians hiding in the sewers, the Mandalorian covert. Now the client, the Imperial guy, has given him one piece of Beskar, almost as a deposit, and he wants it made into a piece of armour for him. The armourer's like, well, what do you want? And Mando's like, well, I guess I could have a shoulder piece. And so he does, he gets a shoulder piece. We also find out, through some subtle character development, that he was what was known as a foundling, but we don't actually know what that is at this point. He then travels to Arvala 7 to get his bounty. He's just having a little look around, enjoying the landscape, enjoying the view, when he gets attacked by whatever that is. It's called a blurg, but I was trying to think of something to call it that sounded fun, but I couldn't think of anything. Yeah, a blurg attacks him, and he's getting pretty beaten up by this blurg until it gets electrocuted. But then another one comes along, but that one also gets electrocuted. It turns out that he was saved by this Ugnaught, and the Ugnauht's like, you're a Mandalorian, aren't you? And you're a bounty hunter. And the Mandalorian's like, yeah, I guess I am. And the Ugnauht's like, well, I want to help you, and I want 50%. And Mando's like, well, 50% is quite a lot if you're just going to help me get to the compound but not help me infiltrate it. And the Ugnaught replies, no, I don't want 50% of the bounty, I'll do it for free, I want 50% of the blurgs that you helped capture. And Mando's like, well, why would I want any of the blurgs that I helped capture? You can have them both, in fact, they tried to attack me. And the Ugnaught says, well, the only way that you're going to get to the compound is by travelling by blurg, you're not going to be able to do it on foot. And the Mandalorian forgets that he has a ship for a while, and says, that makes sense, I better learn how to ride a blurg. So then we get a really short training montage of the Mandalorian learning how to ride blurgs. At first he can't do it, but then the Ugnaught tells him that his ancestors used to ride big mythosaurs, and he can't even ride whatever that is. And so then he can ride them because character development. So the two of them follow the bounty fob to the compound where the Mandalorian's bounty is supposed to be. The Mandalorian wants to give the Ugnaught some credits for his troubles, but the Ugnaught says, I don't want any credits, and leaves. So Mando just wants to enjoy the view in peace because the first time he tried to enjoy the view of Arvala 7 he was attacked by a blurg. This time he's just enjoying the view, but then, oh no, an IG unit's attacking the compound, it must be a bounty droid. Mando decides to go down the hill which he's on the top of to the compound in order to help IG-11. Which is the name of the bounty droid, which is attacking the compound. They work together to fight off the bad guys, or maybe not the bad guys, the people defending the bounty, and Mando uses a big old cannon thing, and we also find out that IG-11 has a self-destruct protocol, which maybe or maybe not is foreshadowing what's going to happen later in the season. They eventually get into the compound and find out that the bounty is actually a baby Yoda. IG-11 goes to kill Baby Yoda, also known as the Child, but we're going to call him Baby Yoda for the most of this video because Baby Yoda's a far better name than the Child. IG-11 goes to shoot him, but then Mando shoots IG-11 in the face and decides to do an ET thing where they touch fingers. And that's the end of episode 1. Episode 2 starts with the Mandalorian and Baby Yoda getting attacked by some Trandoshan bounty hunters. We find out that Mando's gun, the pulse rifle, is able to disintegrate people, so that's pretty cool, I guess. Mando and Baby Yoda then return to the Razor Crest. It's being stripped by Jawas. Now it's important that it's stripped because the Ugnaught, who we will later learn the name of, insists it is stripped, not destroyed, by Jawas. Mando disintegrates a few of them with his pulse rifle and then chases the Sandcrawler. He manages to climb to the top of the Sandcrawler just to be electrocuted by the Jawas and fall all the way back down. Mando goes back to the Ugnaught for help. We find out that Baby Yoda likes to eat frogs, and the Ugnaught says that they have to trade with the Jawas to get the parts back. After a bit of negotiation, the Jawas ask for something called the egg from the Mandalorian in exchange for the parts. So Mando goes to get the egg, but the problem is before he's able to secure it, he gets attacked by this big rhino thing called a Mudhorn. The Mudhorn makes quite short work of the Mandalorian because unfortunately for the Mandalorian, his pulse rifle gets jammed so he can't do his big disintegration trick, which is quite convenient for the storyline because it does mean that we get to see Baby Yoda use the Force so the Mandalorian can finish off the Mudhorn with his vibro knife. Mando then gets the egg, takes it to the Jawas, gets his part back, and then offers Kuiil some money. Kuiil says no, and so Mando's like, sure thing dude, and then gets in his ship with Baby Yoda and flies off into the sunset, and that's the end of episode 2. Chapter 3 starts with the Mandalorian and Baby Yoda inside the Razor Crest. Baby Yoda wants to play with this ball thing on the end of one of the control sticks inside the Razor Crest. The two of them then land on Navarro and Baby Yoda is taken to the client. The client is very happy to see Baby Yoda and Mando gets his Beskar. He then goes straight to the Mandalorian covert and gets dirty looks from his fellow Mandalorians. Mando wants some new armor, but Mando is then challenged before he's able to get that armor by another Mandalorian because the Mandalorian who challenges him says that the Beskar is Imperial. The armourer breaks up their little scrap and then asks Mando whether he wants his signet to be the Mudhorn that he defeated on Arvala 7. Unfortunately, Mando says that he can't have his signet as the Mudhorn that he defeated on Arvala 7 because he was aided by an enemy. The armourer says that instead of making him a signet, she can use that excess Beskar to make him something called Whistling Birds, which are basically these micro missiles which go on his wrist. During the crafting of his new armour, we find out that he was attacked by Separatists as a boy and lost both his parents to them. Mando then walks into the cantina to meet up with Greef Karga in his new armour. He does meet up with Greef Karga, but as he goes to meet up with Greef Karga, he gets lots of dirty looks from other bounty hunters. It turns out that they all also had the bounty on Baby Yoda, but Mando got it before they could. Mando sits down with Greef Karga and Greef Karga says to Mando that he should celebrate his success. Greef Karga offers to take Mando to some Twi'lek healing baths, but Mando just wants his next job. Mando gets up to leave Greef Karga and then asks him what they're going to do with the kid. Greef Karga says that that's not guild policy, so Mando goes to the Razor Crest and gets ready to set off on his next bounty hunting adventure. Just before he takes off though, he sees the ball that Baby Yoda liked to play with, and then he feels really guilty so he goes back to rescue Baby Yoda. Mando gets to the compound and using his Mandalorian spidey sense, he finds out that the client is working for someone. There's then a cool infiltration scene after he's exploded a wall to get into the compound. Mando does find Baby Yoda with this guy called Dr. Pershing, who I could have mentioned earlier on because he was actually in episode 1, but he wasn't particularly important then, but I'll mention him now because he doesn't want Mando to hurt Baby Yoda. So because Dr. Pershing obviously cares for Baby Yoda, Mando doesn't want to hurt Dr. Pershing because he obviously cares for Baby Yoda, so he leaves Dr. Pershing alive. Mando then has to escape the Imperial compound with Baby Yoda, which he does quite successfully. He burns one stormtrooper, which does raise the question, what is their armour even supposed to do if it can't withstand a little bit of heat? But anyway, he then continues and has to use his Whistling Birds to kill 4 stormtroopers, which is quite good planning on his part because he wasn't even going to get them if he had got his signet instead. Back in the cantina where Greef Karga is, all the other bounty hunters' bounty fobs reactivate. They track down Mando and there's a big western fight scene between Mando and lots of other bounty hunters. It looks like Mando's going to lose, but then all the other Mandalorians from the Mandalorian covert come in and save Mando. They say that they're going to have to relocate because this is the way. Mando manages to get to the Razor Crest, but then is confronted by Greef Karga inside the Razor Crest. Mando manages to shoot Greef Karga in the chest and he falls out of the Razor Crest. Fortunately for Greef Karga, he's saved by a piece of Beskar that Mando gave him earlier in the episode. Mando then lifts off and then sees a Mandalorian flying next to him with a jetpack. Mando says that he wants one of them. Mando then gives the ball to Baby Yoda and the episode ends. We start chapter 4 in a krill farming village. The village is then attacked by some raiders and the raiders leave. We then cut to the Razor Crest where inside Baby Yoda is playing with some buttons. You know the scene I mean. Mando wants to find a planet that he and Baby Yoda can lay low on for a time being to evade the Bounty Hunters Guild, and so he finds this planet called Sorgan, and conveniently for us the audience, Sorgan is the same planet that had the village on that was attacked by the Raiders at the very start of the episode. The Razor Crest lands on Sorgan, and Mando wants to have a little look around, scout out the area, enjoy the view. He tells Baby Yoda to stay in the Razor Crest, but Baby Yoda comes with him anyway. I'm not really sure whether Baby Yoda really even understands English, or Galactic Basic as it would actually be called in the Star Wars galaxy, but we know it is English. The two of them go into an inn and Baby Yoda gets a bone broth. Mando doesn't want one because he doesn't want to have to remove his helmet. He sees a scary looking woman in the corner, or at least he thinks she looks scary. But then when he looks back, she's gone. He goes to track her down and they end up getting into a bit of a scuffle, and it's broken up by Baby Yoda just having a sip of his bone broth. Mando and the woman decide that instead of fighting, maybe they should just talk. It turns out that this woman is an ex-rebel shock trooper who is also hiding from bounty hunters, and that's why she's on Sorgan. The woman asks Mando to leave because there's not enough room for them both to hide out on the planet from bounty hunters. Mando reluctantly agrees and returns to the Razor Crest with Baby Yoda. Before he takes off though, he's stopped by some of the villagers from the village we saw at the very start of the episode, who ask him for help with the raiders. They offer him all the credits that the village has. Mando initially says no, but then agrees to help them because he wants to stay in their village. Before he goes to the village, he finds the woman again and offers her the credits in order to help him defend the village. The two of them travel to the village with Baby Yoda. They arrive at the village the next morning and the kids in the village immediately take a liking towards Baby Yoda. Mando goes into a barn with Baby Yoda and talks to this lady and her daughter. Her daughter's called Winter. Winter feeds Baby Yoda and plays with him. How dare she? That is not okay. The woman then brings Mando some food and asks about Mando's helmet. He says he hasn't removed it since he was a kid, but then he eats the food and has to remove his helmet, and he does that basically in a window, so if anyone turns around and looked at him, they would see that he'd removed his helmet. So that wasn't a very good idea on his part, but fortunately for him, no one looks around and sees him. Mando and the woman, the one that Mando got into a fight with earlier in the episode, not the one that just gave him food, go out into the forest, and Mando uses his special sight. They see the tracks of the raiders and then find out that there's also an AT-ST that they're up against, which they didn't know before, and they're not very happy about that. Mando and the woman then tell the villagers that they're going to have to leave because Mando and the woman don't want to have to deal with the AT-ST because they didn't know it was there to start with when they took the job. The villagers say that they don't have anywhere to go, and so they volunteer to fight. We find out that the woman who gave Mando the food knows how to shoot as well. So Mando and the woman that Mando got into a fight with earlier, not the one that gave him the food, say that they will train the villagers. We also finally find out one of the women's names. That's Cara Dune, the one who got into a fight with Mando earlier. So now we have the woman who gave him the food and Cara Dune, instead of just two women, which was very confusing for probably both of us. They make a plan. They're going to dig a trench round the village and then provoke the raiders to attack them, so the AT-ST will walk straight into the trench. Then there's a training montage. Mando and Cara go to provoke the raiders. They enter the camp all stealthy-like and then set some charges. Then they get into a fight with some of the raiders, and one of the raiders ends up headfirst in some blue glowy liquid. The charges go off successfully, and then the AT-ST wakes up. It has red eyes. They return to the village whilst being chased by not just the raiders, but also by the AT-ST. Unfortunately for the villagers, the plan doesn't quite go as it should do, because the AT-ST doesn't walk into the trench immediately. It stops short. It starts to shoot at the village from range. The raiders attack on foot, and then there's a gunfight between the villagers and the raiders. They realise that they're going to have to get the AT-ST to step forward. Cara takes Mando's pulse rifle and runs towards the AT-ST to try and lure it out, get it to step forward into the trench. The villagers run forward towards the raiders and there's an epic fight between them. Meanwhile, Cara shoots at the AT-ST in its eye and manages to do some damage. I'm not really sure what, and it's not really an eye, it's just a hole which the people inside the AT-ST can look through. The AT-ST then falls into the trench and Mando explodes it with a charge. The raiders all run away while the ones that are left and haven't been killed. A few weeks later, Baby Yoda's playing with some children in the village, and the children shouldn't be playing with Baby Yoda. I mean, they've not earned that right yet, but anyway, Mando says that he's going to leave Baby Yoda in the village because he intends to leave because the life that he wants to live isn't the same life that he wants Baby Yoda to live. Fortunately for us, the audience, before Mando is able to leave, a bounty hunter from the Bounty Hunters Guild tracks down Baby Yoda and aims at him. Now, before he's able to get a shot off, Cara Dune does shoot the bounty hunter. Now, why is this fortunate for us? Well, if this bounty hunter hadn't have done this, then Baby Yoda would have stayed on Sorgan, and then Mando would have been without Baby Yoda, and we wouldn't have seen Baby Yoda for the rest of the season, and probably in future seasons. Meanwhile, while all of this is happening, the woman, not Cara Dune, the other one, asks Mando to stay in the village with her. She tries to take off his helmet, but he's like, "No way, Jose," and keeps it on. Mando then finds Cara standing over the body of the bounty hunter who tried to shoot Baby Yoda, and so Mando realises that he's going to have to take Baby Yoda with him because bounty hunters are able to track him wherever he takes Baby Yoda. Just as Mando and Baby Yoda are about to leave, Winter goes and gives Baby Yoda a hug. She's allowed one hug because she's not going to see him again. And then Mando and Baby Yoda leave, and that's the end of the episode. But just before we move on to episode 5, can we just admire the Krill droids? They're pretty cool, and They look quite funny, so yeah, there you go. Now on to episode 5. Chapter 5 starts with the Razor Crest being attacked by another bounty hunter in a space battle. The Razor Crest gets shot and damaged, but Mando does manage to take out the other ship. Because the Razor Crest is damaged, Mando and Baby Yoda are going to have to land on the nearby planet. And what would that nearby planet be, I hear you ask? Of course it's Tatooine, why wouldn't it be? Mando goes to talk to the engineer who's going to fix his ship and leaves Baby Yoda inside the Razor Crest. Mando's going to need money for the repairs and so goes to find work. Meanwhile, back at the hangar, Baby Yoda comes out of the Razor Crest and Peli Motto, who's the engineer that we talked about just a couple of seconds ago, says that she'll look after Baby Yoda and she'll be able to charge Mando more money for babysitting. Mando enters the cantina. You know the one from episode 4? But now it's allowed droids in it. In fact, R5-D4's in it, which is great because we like R5-D4. In fact, there's a video in the top right now. Bang, look at that, incredible. There's a guy called Toro Calican and he's sitting in Han's booth, the one that he shot first in, or maybe second. Anyway, he's got a bounty for this woman called Fennec Shand. She's an assassin. Mando doesn't want anything to do with taking on Fennec because he says that she's a top mercenary. He says that if you go after her, you'll die. But Toro says that it's his first job and he just wants to use it to get into the bounty hunting guild. He says that Mando can have all of the reward. Mando returns to the Razor Crest to get some weapons while Toro goes to get 2 speeder bikes for them to travel on. When Mando walks out of the Razor Crest, Peli tells him that he has an awful lot to learn about raising young ones. Finally, someone has actually told him that a baby is not to be left on its own. Good job, Peli. Mando meets back up with Toro outside of the hangar where the Razor Crest is parked. Peli and Baby Yoda come with Mando and therefore Toro sees Baby Yoda. Mando and Toro set off across the Dune Sea on the speeder bikes that Toro got. They have to stop for some Tusken Raiders though, and Mando communicates with the Tusken Raiders. He offers them binoculars in exchange for passage across their land. They have to stop again because they see a dewback with a rider who is still attached, but the rider is dead. Mando goes to check it out and it turns out that the rider was a bounty hunter who went after Fennec Shand. Fennec shoots Mando when he's checking out the body, but it shoots him in the Beskar, so he's okay. She has the high ground, so they have to come up with a plan. They're going to wait until night and then ride towards her using flash charges to blind her scope. Mando's bike gets shot, and then he does in the chest, although he's okay because again, it's in the Beskar. She's about to shoot Mando, but then Toro confronts her before she's able to. They have a bit of a scrap, and then Mando interrupts when Toro's about to lose, and Fennec surrenders. Because Mando's speeder bike got shot earlier in the episode, Mando has to go back to the dewback that they saw earlier in the episode, so they can all get back together. Fennec, however, knows that Mando is wanted and tells Toro that Mando is wanted and about the child. Toro remembers seeing Baby Yoda and so concludes that this must be the child that she's talking about. Toro shoots Fennec because he intends to go after Mando and Baby Yoda. Mando returns on the dewback to find the body of Fennec. He then goes back to Mos Eisley and returns to the hangar to see that Toro's speeder is outside. Mando enters the hangar and Toro has Peli and the child hostage. Mando takes out Toro successfully and Baby Yoda is okay guys, so crisis is averted. Mando pays Peli with Toro's credits, the Razor Crest is fixed, and so Mando and Baby Yoda leave. And that sounds like it would be the end of the episode, but it's not because someone walks up to Fennec Shand's body. Maybe it's Boba Fett that walks up to Fennec Shand's body, but maybe Fennec Shand isn't dead. We don't really know. There's so many questions and no answers. Chapter 6 starts with the Razor Crest landing in a space station. Mando gets out of the Razor Crest and talks to this guy called Ranzar Malk. Ranzar knows about Mando's guild problems, but the policy on the space station is no questions asked. Ranzar has a job for Mando, and it turns out that the only reason he let him land in the space station is for the Razor Crest, because the Razor Crest doesn't show up on Imperial or New Republic scanners. It turns out that Mando used to run with Ranzar in his old crew. Ranzar introduces the new crew to Mando. Mayfield is the point man, he's an ex-Imperial sharpshooter. Berg is the muscle, he's a Deveronian. Zero is the droid. Jian is the last member, she's a Twi'lek, and it also turns out that she used to run with Mando and Ranzar when they were all a crew together, although Ranzar isn't part of this crew because he's no longer in the action. Zero is piloting on the mission, and so he goes into the Razor Crest to check out the ship. He finds a message from Grief Karga when he's doing this, which makes him suspicious of Mando and knows that he's hiding his problems with the guild. The crew go over the plan. The plan is to enter a New Republic prison ship and get out one of the prisoners. They depart from the space station to go to the New Republic prison ship. They ask Mando about his past, and it turns out that he used to be a pretty bad guy. They want to see his face, and Berg and Mando end up getting into a fight. They accidentally end up opening the door which Baby Yoda is hiding behind. Mayfield messes with Baby Yoda for a while and accidentally drops him on the floor. How dare he? But their fun with Baby Yoda, and I say fun in the lightest sense of the word, is broken up early because they reach the New Republic prison ship. They stealth their way to the control room of the ship, but then they're stopped by some security guards before they're able to enter. Mando single-handedly takes them all out, and then they enter the control room. Mando had thought that the only non-droids would be the prisoners in the ship, but that's not the case. When they enter the control room, they find one human there. He's a New Republic officer. The New Republic officer has a tracking beacon which, when activated, would call New Republic ships to the location of of the tracking beacon. Obviously the crew don't want this to go off, and Mando doesn't want to kill the guy. Unfortunately for Mando, Xi'an kills the guy, and the guy sets off a distress signal using his tracking beacon, so that's not really very good for Mando at all. They locate the cell of the prisoner that they're trying to escape with, cell 221, and deal with any droids that they encounter on the way. It turns out that the prisoner that they're trying to rescue is Xi'an's brother, called Quinn. Unfortunately for Mando, as soon as they've rescued Quinn and he's out of the cell, they throw Mando into the cell and leave him there. Meanwhile, in the Razor Crest, Zero finds out about Mando's Bounty Hunter Guild problem. Back on the prison ship, Mando manages to escape the cell. Zero notices this and tells the others. Mando then returns to the control room, turns off the lights, and cuts off the communication that Zero has with the others. Because he's in the control room, he's able to close and open doors, and so he cuts Mayfield and Quinn off from Xi'an and Berg. Back on the Razor Crest, Zero sees Baby Yoda and goes to hunt him down. Back on the prison ship, Quinn is quite happy to leave his sister behind, and Berg and Xi'an choose to split up. Mando takes the tracking beacon from the now dead New Republic officer. Mayfield and Quinn choose to split up, so now everyone is on their own. Berg enters the control room and Mando and Berg have a bit of a scrap. Mando eventually wins by crushing Berg in a door. Mando then confronts Xi'an and defeats her. Mando then sneaks upon Mayfield and defeats him. Mando then gets to Quinn just as he's trying to escape onto the Razor Crest. Quinn says that he'll let Mando claim the bounty on Quinn all by himself. Isn't that the Mandalorian's code anyway? Meanwhile, back in the Razor Crest, Zero does eventually find Baby Yoda and goes to shoot him. Baby Yoda goes to use the Force and Zero explodes. It turns out it was actually Mando who shot Zero from behind. Mando returns to the space station to deliver Quinn to Ranzar. Ranzar asks about the others, but Mando responds that no questions should be asked. Mando gets paid and then he and Baby Yoda leave the station on the Razor Crest. Ranzar tells someone to shoot down the Razor Crest. Unfortunately for Ranzar, Mando left the tracking beacon from the New Republic officer on the station. As the Razor Crest leaves, 3 New Republic X-Wings fly in and attack the station. Again, this sounds like it would be the end of the episode, but that's not the case. It turns out when we cut back to the New Republic prison ship that Mando let Xi'an, Berg and Mayfield live. They're locked up in the ship, and then the episode ends. Chapter 7 starts with the Razor Crest in space. Greef Karga calls Mando and asks him to come back to Navarro to help remove the Imperial presence on Navarro because it's got worse since Mando left. Greef Karga says that if Mando does this, Greef Karga will have his name cleared with the guild. Greef Karga's plan is to use Baby Yoda as bait so they can get close enough to the client so Mando can kill him. Mando isn't stupid though, and so he decides that he needs some backup. Mando returns to Sorgan to find Kara after she's just won a fight against someone. Mando offers Kara a job to help him, and she says no initially, but then Mando says that she'd be taking out Imperials, and then she's definitely in. Then we cut to Mando and Kara on the Razor Crest. They're just having a friendly chat. Baby Yoda starts playing with the controls of the Razor Crest. For some reason he's in the cockpit on his own. That's not very good parenting on Mando's part, and so Mando and Kara decide that they need someone to watch over Baby Yoda while they do their job. So Mando decides to take a little trip back to Arvala 7 to see his friend the Ugnaught. Inside the Ugnauht's hut or tent or whatever it is, they get to know each other, and we find out that the Ugnaught used to serve the Empire until he worked off his clan's debt. Then IG-11 walks in with some tea and offers it to them. Mando and Kara are obviously surprised by this and point blasters at IG-11, but it turns out that Kuiil has actually reprogrammed IG-11, and then we go to a montage of the reprogramming. The Ugnaught says that IG-11 is no longer a hunter, but he will protect. Mando then asks for the Ugnaught's help in protecting and looking after Baby Yoda, and we finally find out the Ugnaught's name, Kuiil. Because of Mando's past, we know that Mando doesn't really like droids, and so doesn't really trust IG-11 still, even after Kuiil says that he is trustworthy. Kuiil says that he can reprogram IG-11 for nursing, but Kuiil himself doesn't want to look after Baby Yoda. Mando says no initially, but then Kuiil asks Mando whether he trusts him. Mando says yes, and then Kuiil says then he should trust his work. Kuiil says that he and IG-11 will come on the mission, not for payment, but to protect Baby Yoda. Also, the Blurgs will come too. So Mando, Baby Yoda, Kuiil, IG-11, Kara, and 3 Blurgs set off to Navarro. On the trip, Mando and Kara decide to have an arm wrestle. Baby Yoda thinks that his dad is being threatened, and so he chokes Kara. Mando intervenes and prevents Kara being killed. This then leads to a heated discussion between Kara and Kuiil, where Kara accuses Kuiil of still being an Imperial. This then leads to Kuiil agreeing to improve Baby Yoda's cot into the type of cot like the egg thing that we see in the start that Baby Yoda has, but then he doesn't have it after Mando takes him off Navarro after episode 3. The crew land on Navarro and are greeted by Greef Karga. He has an entourage of 3 bounty hunters. Mando and Greef have a bit of a chat, and Greef comments that they both brought a security detail with them. Greef says that they should cross the lava fields to make a camp so then they can enter the settlement the next day. When the camp is set up, they go over the plan. The plan is that Mando and Greef will enter the common house and show Baby Yoda to the client, and then Mando will kill the client. Then the camp gets attacked by these pterodactyl-like things. One of Greef Karga's entourage gets carried off, and so does a Blurg. In the attack, Greef was injured, he was poisoned, it looks like he's going to die. Baby Yoda walks up to Greef and Greef thinks that he's going to be eaten by Baby Yoda. Baby Yoda force heals Greef Karga, then the next day when they're travelling, Greef Karga shoots the 2 remaining members of his entourage. He says that his original plan was to trap and kill Mando and then take Baby Yoda to the client, but after the force heal incident he couldn't go through with it. They come up with a new plan. Kuiil and Baby Yoda will go and hide in the Razor Crest while Cara pretends to have captured Mando and Baby Yoda, but actually Baby Yoda won't be there, he'll be in the Razor Crest, instead it will just be his floating egg pod thing. Mando, Cara and Greef enter the settlement, which is guarded by 2 scout troopers. They enter the cantina, which is completely empty except for the client and his 4 stormtroopers. They sit at the booth with the client and more troopers enter the cantina. The client says that he would like to see the baby, but just before they have to open the egg pod thing and show him that they'd not actually brought Baby Yoda, the client gets a call. The call is from some guy called Moff Gideon, and he knows that Baby Yoda isn't with Mando. Suddenly the cantina gets gunned down and the client is killed. Mando, Cara and Greef Karga are the only ones to survive and they take cover. The frosted window of the cantina is now completely destroyed, so Mando, Cara and Greef Karga can see out. They can see Death Troopers and more stormtroopers turn up. Mando checks in on Kuiil's position and the 2 scout troopers at the entrance of the settlement intercept the transmission and know that Baby Yoda isn't with Mando, so they chase down Kuiil. A TIE fighter with foldy wings lands outside the cantina. Moff Gideon steps out and he wants Baby Yoda. Kuiil then gets shot by the scout troopers and they take Baby Yoda, and that's how the episode ends. Chapter 8 starts with the scout troopers who took Baby Yoda in the last episode. They take Baby Yoda back to the settlement but pull up before they enter it. They wait for confirmation to proceed into the settlement. One of them punches Baby Yoda, which is absolutely not okay. Okay, yeah? We clear? Good, excellent. They decide to wait even longer outside of the settlement because Moff Gideon is taking out his own troopers, referring to the ones he took out in the last episode inside the cantina. The same scout trooper hits Baby Yoda again, not okay, and then the 2 scout troopers do some target practice on a piece of scrap, but miss every single shot. One of the scout troopers pokes Baby Yoda bites his finger, and then he hits Baby Yoda. Again, for the last time, not okay. IG-11 then turns up and asks for Baby Yoda back. IG-11 then beats up both the scout troopers and gets Baby Yoda back by force, then he gets on a speeder bike and goes into the settlement. Back at the cantina, Mando wants to escape via the sewers. Stormtroopers outside assemble an E-Web heavy repeating blaster cannon. Mando uses his Mando Spidey sensors to find a vent in the cantina where they can try and escape into the sewers. Unfortunately, they can't get the grate off. Moff Gideon starts talking and we find out that he actually knows about all 3 of them. He knows who Cara is and he also knows Mando. In fact, he knows Mando's real name, Din Djarin. He gives them until nightfall to surrender and then he will fire the E-Web cannon at the cantina. Now at this point, Moff Gideon hasn't actually said his name, but Mando manages to deduce that it must be Moff Gideon who's talking to them because Moff Gideon was an ISB officer during the Mandalorian Purge. He had access to the Mandalorian record, so would have had access to Mando's real name. We then get a flashback to young Den being rescued by Death Watch Mandalorians. Mando tries to contact Kuiil, but IG-11 responds and says that Kuiil has been terminated. IG-11 then arrives at the settlement and guns down some of the troopers. The troopers outside the cantina focus on IG-11, and IG-11 engages the troopers outside the cantina. Mando, Cara and Greef Karga get involved in the fight, and Mando picks up the E-Web repeating blaster cannon and shoots some of the troopers. Cara is still in the cantina. Some Death Troopers blow up the door to the cantina and enter. Cara successfully defeats the troopers. Gideon returns and shoots Mando, but it hits him in the Beskar, so he's okay. So then Gideon blows up the E-Web repeating blaster cannon and Mando with it. Greef, Cara, Mando, IG-11 and Baby Yoda all retreat into the cantina. Moff Gideon tells his troopers to burn them out. IG-11 removes the grate to the sewers, which they were trying to remove earlier, but they couldn't because IG-11 wasn't there. Mando is dying, but refuses to remove his helmet for medical treatment because he doesn't want anyone to see his face. An incinerator trooper shows up and shoots fire at the cantina. He then enters the cantina and shoots fire at them directly. Baby Yoda, however, protects them and shoots it back at the incinerator trooper, exploding him. Baby Yoda then decides it's nap time because he's done his work for the episode and so goes to sleep. Mando tells all the others to leave because IG-11 has finished getting the grate open, but IG-11 stays with Mando anyway and tells the others to go. IG-11 wants to remove Mando's helmet, but Mando says that no living thing can see Mando's face. IG-11 responds and says that he isn't a living thing and so removes Mando's helmet. He sprays Bacta onto Mando's wounds and manages to get him into the sewers. IG-11 helps Mando into the sewers and they reunite with the rest of the crew. The crew then want to find the Mandalorian covert that was hidden in the sewers earlier in the season. Mando activates his Mandalorian spider sense and then they follow them. Unfortunately, they don't find any Mandalorians, they just find a pile of Mandalorian armor. Presumably they're dead, and then Mando and Greef argue over the fact that Mando accuses Greef of the murder of the Mandalorians. The armorer steps out of the shadows and breaks backs up the argument. She says that it wasn't Greef Karga's fault. She says it was the Imperials and that some of the Mandalorians may have survived and gotten off-world. She, however, says that she won't leave until she's salvaged the rest of the Beskar. Mando and the Armourer then have a bit of a chat. The Armourer says she knows of beings who can move objects with their minds, sorcerers called Jedi who fought against the Mandalorians in the past. She says that Baby Yoda is not an enemy though, and it is a foundling, and by the Creed it is in the Mandalorians' care. By the Creed, Mando must therefore return Baby Yoda to Baby Yoda's kind, or take Baby Yoda in as a foundling and a Mandalorian. Mando then asks the Armourer whether she really expects him to take Baby Yoda to a race of enemy sorcerers. The Armourer then tells Mando that this is the way, and that until then, Mando is Baby Yoda's father. Mando then gets his signet, which he was going to get in Chapter 3, but he didn't get in Chapter 3 because he didn't want it in Chapter 3, but now he does want it because Baby Yoda is now an ally rather than an enemy. Mando is therefore part of a clan of two, him and Baby Yoda. Some stormtroopers arrive and the crew has to escape to an underground lava river. The Armourer doesn't go with them, however, because she wants to salvage the rest of the Beskar, but before they leave, she does give Mando a jetpack from one of the bodies of the fallen Mandalorians. The stormtroopers start to question the Armourer, and the Armourer gets into a fight with the stormtroopers and successfully and proficiently defeats them with just the tools that she uses to craft the Mandalorian armour. The crew reach the river and they find a lava-proof boat there which they get on. The ferry droid in the boat wakes up and they start to travel down the lava river. The crew think that they've escaped the Empire, but when Mando activates his Mandalorian spidey sensors, he sees lots of troopers hiding outside the mouth of the tunnel which they're going through, which the lava river is in. They tell the ferry droid to stop the boat and he doesn't, and then they shoot the ferry droid, but the boat still doesn't stop. IG-11 says that the only way that the crew, apart from IG-11, are going to survive it is if IG-11 self-destructs himself at the end of the tunnel. He says that they can't shoot their way out because there's too many stormtroopers and they'd all just be killed. Mando argues with him and says that they need him, but Mando then eventually agrees that it is the only way, and Mando is very sad that IG-11 is going to sacrifice himself because he's decided that he actually does quite like IG-11. IG-11 steps into the lava river and walks to the end of the tunnel. He explodes himself and clears the mouth of the tunnel. A moment of quiet now for all of those that we have lost. Back to the action, the rest of them reach the end of the tunnel just to find that Moff Gideon is flying around in the sky in his foldy wings TIE fighter. He starts to shoot at them and they shoot at him. Greef Karga asks Baby Yoda to do the magic hand thing and Baby Yoda just waves at him. Mando puts his jetpack on while Gideon circles back around for a second attack. Mando does a cool fly jump thing and grapples onto the back of the TIE fighter. After a bit of a struggle on Mando's part, he manages to blow up the wing of the TIE fighter and the TIE fighter crashes. Mando lands near Greef and Cara, and Greef and Cara tell Mando that they've decided to stay on Navarro for a little while. Greef says that Mando can return to the guild, but Mando says that he has to find Baby Yoda's people. Mando buries Kuiil, so he probably is actually dead, so he's not going to be pulling a Darth Maul or a Darth Sidious anytime soon and coming back. Mando and Baby Yoda take off in the Razor Crest, and that's the end of the episode. But wait, it's not! At the crash site of the Foldy Wings TIE Fighter, it turns out that Moff Gideon has actually survived. He cuts a hole in the side of the TIE Fighter with a darksaber and steps out all menacing. He stands on top of the TIE Fighter for zero reason other than because he thinks he looks cool. And that is the end of The Mandalorian Season 1. Thanks for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, comment, all of that stuff. The video took quite a while to make this time, so any support would be appreciated. If you enjoyed the video, remember to check out any of the other videos I've made on this channel. There's a great one in the bottom left and in the top left. And that's about it. Thanks for watching. Bye!